Alrighty, I have another horror story that I wrote. This one's a bit older, and I created it during my first exploration of the combination of Lovecraftian horror with Edgar Allan Poe level of unreliable narration. This thing is called The Second Floor Bedroom and was slightly influenced by personal experience. Point is, let's just dive into this thing. I had always hated staying the night in my grandparents' house. Something about the place rubbed me the wrong way. Perhaps it was the heavy, musky smell that lingered and clung to the walls as my grandparents clung to life for so long before leaving the place to me, or the way life drained of everything within several hundred yards of the house. The only living foliage being a weeping apple tree that always seemed to be rotting on the edge of the property, and the droopy roses on the front lawn. The only reason I moved into the wretched place is that I didn't have to pay anything for it. The basement bedrooms had always felt like the blindingly white leaded paint was going to slither off the wall and poison me in my sleep. So I took up residence in the second floor bedroom in all its mustard yellow glory. I had to paint it with latex-based paint just to feel safe. I painted it a light gray, the color of one of those old whiteboards you can never fully get the marker off of. The shingles on the roof ruffled like a bird's feathers with the slightest breeze. I seriously considered renovating the whole thing. My electricity went out at random, usually when the boiler kicked into gear, and all I could hear was the rumbling of the boiler shaking the foundation. I got a job in the nearby town as a clerk at a grocery store. I don't know if it was my job or the air that hung around the property that exhausted me so much, but when I returned to that rickety house, there was nothing I desired more than rest. Rest that I could never quite get no matter how much I slept. I always felt restless and drained. The gray that I had painted my room seemed to taunt me by getting brighter and closer to white the longer I spent there. I started seeing shadowed figures in the corners of my vision. They seemed to scamper around the halls with an unstable, pattering gait, almost limping about that rickety house that groaned with the strain. One bleak afternoon, I saw something that seemed not of this world creeping up the front of the house. The ivy-like vines seemed to possess a spectral shimmer, as if covered in oil, and oblique, spine-covered leaves large enough to engulf a small bird. This was the first time I had seen anything living and thriving on the property since the roses were originally planted when I was 6 years old. The roses were very hardy in those first few years, but as the health of my grandparents declined, so did the roses. The vines sapped my energy completely upon contact and made me unable to sleep at all. That night, as I lay awake in the sagging building, I heard a low, incessant tapping on my bedroom window. Nothing should be able to reach, my brain screamed. I was frozen in utter terror. So much so I couldn't bring myself to even look at the perpetrator of the persistent rapping on the window, too constant to be pebbles getting thrown by some kid. What was that incessant tapping? The shingles weren't shuddering, and the house wasn't creaking to signal there was even a cool breeze. The house was balmy. Even the walls of my room were sweating, yet there was a chill in my veins and a shiver racing down my spine. I stayed almost perfectly still until I saw the first tendrils of dawn creep over the horizon. Even the sunrise was adopting the eerie prismatic shimmer of the ivy that had completely overtaken the north side of the house, but nowhere near my second-floor bedroom window that faced east. There was no sill, nothing for anyone to climb or perch in order to give me a scare in the dead of night. The shadowy figures became more active in the coming days. They took on grotesque shapes akin to the mangled forms of animals crudely drawn by elementary children. Every once in a while, I'd feel the cold form of one of them brush against my leg. I assured myself it was all hallucination because I was tired and I went to bed. The tapping continued, and so did my insomnia. When I came to after a night of something that could barely be called sleep, the ivy had completely covered my windows, and I couldn't remove it without passing out. So I turned my back on it so I could get ready for the day. When I woke up, I didn't know what had happened or how long I had been unconscious. My limbs were entangled in the ivy that had burst through the window and grown around me, nearly cutting off my airway. My ability to struggle was drained from my body the second I woke up, and by the dizzying prismatic shimmer of those vines. I didn't realize or recognize I was in pain until I saw one of the spines from the leaves driven through my abdomen. It was best if I just let the ivy take me. I was so incredibly weary, I let my body go limp. The moment I did, the ivy receded, leaving me too delirious to call a doctor or freak out about the gaping hole in my stomach that now, upon inspection, contained a kitchen knife. All that mattered was sleep. That rest that I had so desperately wanted overtook me. Now I know why my grandparents left the house to me. I had always been their least favorite, and the instant they could go to a retirement home, they did. Nothing I can do now. I'm never going to wake up again, so it doesn't matter all too much. That was the second floor bedroom. I hope you all liked it, and I hope all of you have good afternoon, good morning, good night, whatever time it is for you. Have a good time. Peace.